Ulrike Demmer, spokesperson of the German government, thank you so much for these insights. But Jenny, why are you still hanging around here? Go to work. Go. Sorry. Because now it's a special pleasure for me to announce the last panel discussion hosted by my co-founder of this summit, the marvelous Jenny Havemann. She's a political analyst, entrepreneur, and the CEO and founder of German-Israeli Network. And she's a social media expert. That's why Jenny and her panelists are discussing now the question, social media as the fifth power. I hope Jenny managed to go over in the next room. And Jenny, if you are there, please go for it.
Whew. Okay. Are you ready, guys?
Absolutely.
So, first of all, good evening and Erev Tov and Guten Abend to the panel, the social media as the fifth power. And please welcome to this panel. And I want to introduce you to our amazing speakers. As I told to my speakers, this should be the best panel, not only the last, but also the best panel of the summit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start. Some people asked, why is it called social media the fifth power? And we know that we have the three powers of democracy, and we have the fourth power, which is the so-called traditional media. And now for some years already, we have social media, and social media really became, all of us agree that social media became a real power, the fifth power. And I'm introducing you to my amazing speakers. The first is Laura Goudkamp. Laura Goudkamp works as a journalist and author in Munich. Since August 2018, Laura develops new storytelling formats for the RD International Correspondence in her function as a team lead of Weltspiegel Digital. Thank you, Laura, for joining us at this panel.
Thanks for having me.
Our next speaker is Joelle Weil. Joelle Weil is a Swiss freelance journalist, columnist, and writer. She has been working for Switzerland's biggest media companies. Since 2010, she's been writing several columns, such as Generation Clash for Renier AG from 2010 to 2018. Since 2018, she's part of the columnist team of Luzerner Zeitung. She covers life and politics from Israel for her Swiss audience. Thank you, Joelle, for being with us.
My pleasure.
And our next speaker is Ruben Gerczikow. Ruben from Frankfurt, Germany, is Vice President of the European Union of Jewish Students, the umbrella organizations representing more than 160,000 young Jews between 18 and 35 in 36 countries. Furthermore, he is a Vice President of the German Union of Jewish Students. Hi, Ruben.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our next speaker is Katharina Ciobotaru. She is a German writer and journalist working as a freelance journalist for Welt, Jüdische Allgemeine, and Edition F. She is the editor of the magazine Israel Zwischen Zeilen. She published 8 fiction and non-fiction books with some renewed publishers. Katharina, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Our next speaker is Paula Zara Natuzios. Paula has been working as a journalist for 12 years, mostly in the field of radio and podcast, TV, social media, and also online. She works for RD, I24 News, Vice. She's covering topics such as social media, hate speech, anti-Semitism, Jewish life, and feminism in her work. Currently, She works as an innovation manager, social media strategist, and former developer at IDA, which is an innovation digital startup from CDF Digital and MDL. Hi, Paula. Thanks for being with us.
I'm very happy to be here. Hi.
And our last speaker is Sivan Felder.
Awesome.
Sivan Felder eats, sleeps, and breathes video. She was born as a storyteller. Sivan has spent her career working in the video industry and now serves as the co-founder and CMO of TwoHeads, a video marketing firm that also pitched today. And she's guided video strategies and campaign for companies such as Cynet, Our Crowd, Mixed Styles, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and Google Cloud. Her dream is to help the startup nation become a scale-up nation. Amazing. I would love to hear what that means in a minute. By teaching Israeli companies and startups how to harness the power of video to dominate their markets. Thank you for being with us, Sivan.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I was having technical difficulties with my computer, so I apologize for being the last.
Thank you for being with us. That's fine. That's an online, a live conference. So guys, let's start with the first question. Well, obviously, for all of you, social media is very important. How important is it not only for your personal or private life, but how important is it for your work? Laura, please.
Yeah, so basically it's my bread and butter business, really, because my team and we are responsible for all social media channels of Weltspiegel, which is the foreign program of ARD, so the public broadcaster. And we really try to be a digital platform to transport all the stories in the world from 30 different foreign studios onto social media. And so I'd say social media is really shaping my working life every day.
Okay, that's obviously you're also managing the social media. So of course, this is an important topic in your everyday work life. Joelle, you're a journalist and you became now more active on Twitter for the last few months. And does it somehow influence your work? Like how important is that, for example, Twitter for your work?
I have to add that I've been using Twitter passively for a long time, but now that I have 1,000 followers, I enjoy the active part as well. But social media in general became a very essential and central part of journalism and research, especially because social media can open a whole new world of information. There are plenty of voices, of opinions, pictures, and so on available that are very often not published on the so-called mainstream media. Also, for obvious reasons, social media is much, much quicker than most of the media, which is also, as a journalist, that's an amazing thing. Although social media became a central part in journalism, we still have to be careful as journalists, because social media should never replace the, let's call it, old school research. With that, I mean the following. I do have the impression that not only journalists, but especially journalists, do very often believe that the vibes they're getting from social media are the actual vibes of the people, which is barely the case. Even with a very active social media culture, as we as journalists still have to be out there talking to people and convince ourselves in person from reality. But social media is no doubt a great and amazing tool to complete our existing picture, to learn new perspective, or especially to find new sources. So I do believe in the importance of social media for journalistic work, but I also do believe that we have to enjoy this tool with caution. Social media mostly shows a specific trend, which is important for the big picture, no question, but social media, of course, barely represents the full reality, and this is something we have to keep in mind.
Okay, that's definitely very interesting perspective, and we'll talk about also the dangers, of course, later on. Now, Ruben, you could say more like an activist, political activist, young Jewish student activist. How important is that for your work?
I think what Joelle was mentioning is pretty right, because we see that journalists are using a lot of tweets for their own articles, and especially for us as a very young organization. And there are a lot of other young or political organizations in Germany and in Europe. We tweeting about our topics, about our concerns, about our political, and tweeting about our political statements, because we know that there are a lot of journalists who are using Twitter as their most important information tool. And what we are seeing is that a lot of our tweets are getting mentioned in articles from different newspapers, from Israeli newspapers, from German newspapers, or from different European newspapers. So this is what we see, that we have to tweet about our topics, otherwise we will not be heard as a young Jewish voice in certain media. And on the other hand, it's important because we are representing mostly people from 18 to 35, and most of them are not using emails or newsletter for information. So if we are posting stuff on Facebook, for example, Facebook is I would say our main platform to interact with our crowd, because and I think it's getting more and more also to other social media platforms, what we have to discuss if we want to use them, because we also need the younger generation being active in Jewish student activism. But we will see what kind of social media platforms will be good for us or will be not good for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Interesting that you're very active on Facebook, because I'm getting less and less active on Facebook, because I'm saying it's like the old people's platform right now. But I think there's still, I'm sure there are still many like young people to reach. And Katharina, you are very active on Instagram. I think less on Twitter. And Twitter, you're not active at all, I think.
No,
I'm not mistaken. Maybe as a passive, right?
no, not even as a passive user.
Not
to be
even.
honest. It's not my social media. I think it's I think this is very much the source of the question is, what are you using it for? And for me personally, I'm more working as a creative. I do journalism work, but it basically is the smallest part of my work. Most of my work is writing book, creating stories, coming up with fantasies. And so for me, Instagram is a perfect media to get inspired. But I will still tell you a good example of how it actually really influenced my work, because I'm about to publish a new book this year in October that is called Unfuck the Economy. And I wrote this book together with Waldemar Zeiler, who's a very known entrepreneur in Germany. And we're friends on Instagram for a long time, because he is the partner of one of my best friends. And I always saw his stories, and he talks a lot about how all the things we need to do in order to unfuck the economy, what needs to change, and what they are doing with their own startup called Einhorn. And I was always watching his stories, and I wrote him a year ago, Waldemar, you have to make a book about this. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is such an important theory, and this is so many important informations you're delivering. And he didn't come around to do it. And then this year with the whole Corona crisis, I wrote him again. Okay, that's it. We're doing it. I don't care if you want to do it. I'll do it with you. And I basically wrote the first pitch for the publishers. I wrote it based on his Instagram stories.
Wow.
I was watching all his Instagram stories that I knew were connected to Unfuck the Economy. And I took out all the big topics that he had, like inequality, climate crisis, and so on. And I basically built the whole pitch based on his Instagram stories. So I think this is a perfect example of how it can not only inspire you in your private life and give you the possibility to reach people that you want to reach in like your social life and your private life, but it is also a great tool to basically network, to keep in contact with people, to keep up with what people are doing, and to see opportunities of where you can work together, or also people can approach you. It happened to me many times that people approached me, to write certain texts or whatever. So I think it's very versatile, even for people that are not in journalism, hardcore journalism, if you want to call it like that.
You're absolutely right. And it's true that through social media, you can even, get inspired for your work as you did it. But also, I know someone, our next speaker, Paula, that actually found her recent job through social media, which I think is amazing. And it shows, that you can even find new workplace through social media. Paula, how does, like in your job right now, or even before maybe, how did you use social media for your work?
I actually use social media every day as I work in a digital startup. It's pretty obvious that we need social media and we work with social media. For example, I develop strategies for our customers, for example, for media outlets, on how they can get in touch with their target group or their audience, because nowadays we don't have a similar situation like we used to have, where people would just switch on their TV and watch a show. Nowadays, you have so many media products, and you can't just wait for people to discover them and to find them and listen or watch them. You really need to draw their attention to your product, and this is something we do. And I do at my new job, which I actually, I found it on Twitter. I was still living in Israel, and my now boss sent me a message on Twitter and offered me, my new position, which was amazing. I would have never thought I would find a job like that. And after I moved back to Germany, I started at IDA, the company. And in the middle of Corona, we built up a new startup for media and innovation. Social media is highly important for my day-to-day job, but also for my work life.
Thank you very much, Sivan. So, I guess it's pretty useless to ask you how important social media for your work is, because your work is social media. So tell us about how it became maybe important,
So it's interesting because I'm actually from the States, from America, and I live in Israel. And I think one of the hardest things when you come to a place where you don't necessarily have any roots, it's kind of like building a community from the beginning. So my brother and I, when we started our company, we don't necessarily have contacts in high up places, to help us get started. And we really just started by posting videos online, like on my Facebook page. And within 2 years, we built an entire company just around people starting to recognize us just from our videos. And I think I think what people don't realize is how much of a relationship you can develop with people you've never met. And how, you see any platform, and, whether it's Twitter, Instagram. I'm a bit of a, what do they call, a scroller on TikTok. I just like to see what's happening, but just the more you get, I see some people laughing during the pandemic. I feel like all of the millennials downloaded it as a joke, and now we're like, stop. But just this.
Really, we have to, Sivan, watch out. Our kids will be on TikTok soon.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! I'm never telling my kids. It's a terrible place, but I think there's just so much incredible, the ability to meet people without ever having met them, and the relationships that you can develop. I think it's so incredible. Katharina, you said, how you never met this person necessarily, but now you're writing a book together. Jenny, you and I met, I think you came to one of our talks, and we just stayed in contact over Instagram, but that kind of relationship that can develop, and the not just the stories you can tell, but the people that you can meet. And so it's not just important for my work because that's how, we create content and we share it online, but also because I can't imagine having gone about it any other. I know in the olden days you had to just like meet people and shake their hand and like make a business deal. But now you can post a few videos and suddenly like people feel like they really know you. So I think, you know, you asked before, like, what is the, like to make the scale up, the startup nation, the scale up nation. Like, I feel like that ability to make relationships is something that I feel like Israeli companies have a very hard time with understanding how to reach the masses. Right. Like, so like just if you have a product, like nobody cares, you need to actually share it. So just that mindset of like the world is your oyster, but you kind of have to put yourself out there. And I think social media is one of the most incredible things out there for that kind of growth.
Yes. So don't worry, it's not only Israeli companies, German companies have also challenges being on social media active. So some of you already mentioned, but I want to go a little bit, few minutes deeper into that. What is your favorite platform? Maybe you have not one, maybe you have two favorite platforms, and also why? Like, what do you see in those platforms that you don't see in other platforms? Which advantages? Laura, please.
So personally, I love to use Twitter to just, you know, stay up to date. And it's also, I think, the fastest platform to grasp news, to know what topics are trending. This is especially important for my working life. So, you know, considering which topics are we putting on the social media channels. But then again, it's a very fast channel, and it's also a really rough place, as we all know. So exchanging ideas there gets really heated really fast. So we might have the chance to talk about this in a bit. And also, I love Instagram. So I'm really, you know, following the channel, and I see that there is a change coming. So it started with, you know, just nice pictures, looking at food pictures, selfies. And now it's like there's a politicization coming more and more, and everybody's using it right now. You know, it's part of actually getting my information every day. So I really like the combination of getting informations. And also sometimes you just want to escape during your business day, right? You just want to see some nice things your friends are doing. And so I think Twitter and Instagram are the two channels I love the most and are most dedicated to.
Okay, interesting. Joelle, what is your favorite platform? Maybe one or two, and why?
For work, definitely Twitter, because it's a great tool to connect with journalists, activists, even politicians, in a very uncomplicated way. And they post content that I usually don't cross. So thanks to Twitter, I enjoy a much wider range of articles and sources. And I see it on a daily basis that there are plenty of articles and topics that I would have never found without people sharing them on Twitter. So it's actually like an endless library. This is how it feels to me. And as I mentioned, it's very, very quick. Sometimes it feels like a live stream there. So this is not important in my position, since I'm not covering hard news, but still it's something amazing to see. And as the so-called fifth power, we also, as journalists, we have to question ourselves and our work constantly, and also be able to criticize the newspapers we work for. And on Twitter, I kind of created that journalist bubble where I can have this ongoing discussion. I originally wanted to use Instagram for work too, but I ended up just posting pictures of my dogs. So I'm helpless there.
Yes, and I love seeing your dog every day. But Ruben, what is your favorite platform? I mean, for your work, you said you're using Facebook a lot, but also Twitter, right? What is your favorite one, and why?
Personally, I think Twitter is I love Twitter, and among my friends, I'm well known as Twitter addict, and I'm pretty sure I'm addicted to Twitter. for several reasons. First of all, what is the most interesting thing is you can tweet about what you want, and people, it depends what you're tweeting, obviously, but people care about what you're tweeting. And especially as a person who is very into politics and I have a lot of stuff to say, I'm still surprised that people are listening to me and love what I'm saying. And as it was mentioned before, it's very easy to get in contact with politicians, with journalists, and also I found a lot of friends via Twitter, what is also a great thing. And especially it's like a life ticker, and this is what I really enjoy. For example, when it comes to politics, when it comes to also to trials, for example, the Halle trial, I everything I know about the trial and what is happening there, it's because of a few people who are tweeting live from the trial. And so it gives you a lot of more information than any other social media platform. This is what I'm really enjoying. And because Twitter has a lot, like at least for me, I have a lot of different bubbles, like a Jewish bubble, like a football bubble, like a Israeli bubble, and everything. So you can choose what you want to read about, and that's I think it's much more interesting than Instagram or Facebook for me.
This is interesting because I have also the feeling that Twitter is growing, but I've seen some numbers that actually the Twitter numbers of users are going down, which actually surprised me. But I guess when you're like in this Twitter bubble, you don't feel it. Katharina, what is, I would guess that Instagram is as you already mentioned, your favorite platform. Also, you said a little bit why, but maybe tell us a little bit more, like why, what you like about Instagram.
I think, first of all, for me personally, the usability is the most amazing in Instagram. I find it very easy to post things. I find it very easy to respond to. I find the graphics very nice, the optics, and I'm not the most optical person. Like I don't have the best eye or whatever. I'm a word person, but I do enjoy, if we talk, for example, when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot of activity on Instagram, and I just think that it was such a great way of getting and diving into this topic and starting to follow several activists, but also people that have a voice, and that I felt like, oh, I need to listen more to that. And, you have all these different ways. You have the stories that, can be very artsy, but they can also contain just people speaking to the camera and talking about things. You can take the phone with you to a demonstration and show a video in the story of the demonstration you are just attending, but you can also just write a text. And for example, I have learned recently that I post pictures that do have a connection to the text that I write with it, but not necessarily they're still lovely pictures. And I do think that there's something to it, that you catch the attention of people that will look at the picture. For example, we recently had the case of this gang rape in Israel, in Eilat. And so I posted a picture of me and my sons, where you couldn't see the faces of my sons because I'm very strict about that. But I posted a picture, and then I wrote basically about how I think we need to raise our sons in a certain way, so this will not happen, or this will not keep on happening. And I think that in this way, Instagram is amazing because, it speaks to you, you relate to it, it looks good, but you also can totally send a message. However, I do see a lot of limitations with Instagram, and that is mainly that I do think what Joelle already addressed, that we are in a very big bubble. Because when I look who's on Instagram, it's a certain type of people. It's a lot of millennials, it's our generation, and it's not necessarily, let's say, the 50 plus. So I do think that when I want to reach them, which, I do sometimes, I more tends to move towards Facebook. There are a few writers, for example, a few editors of cultural departments of newspapers that are not on Instagram, or are not active on Instagram, but are very active on Facebook, and that I, communicate with on Facebook a lot more than I could ever on Instagram. So I think that for me personally, for my inspiration, for me sending out messages, I use a lot more Instagram, but I also actually do still use a lot of Facebook. I think there's a lot of problems in the algorithm and of stuff that we see and all the stuff that we don't see mainly. It's like mainly about what we don't see, which seems to be a lot. But I still think it's a way to get out of your bubble a bit. And if we talk especially also about things that are happening in Germany, the more, the parts of the society that might not agree with our woke living, you find them on Facebook and you can read their opinions. They're very unfiltered. And I think you get a completely different feeling for parts of the society. If we talk about voters, for example, of the right-wing party, AfD, they are there. So they're not on Instagram. You have to move over there to see and to hear them and to, fight them.
That I think is really very important aspect of it, to reach those people that you can't reach on the platform where you are active on. So Paula, I have a guess, but tell us a little bit about your favorite platform and also why it is your favorite platform, because I agree with Katharina. For example, Instagram, there are a lot of bloggers also who are not only posting pictures, but actually a lot of interesting, blog posts also. Tell us about your favorite and why.
Well, I catch myself more and more noticing that I use Facebook only every third or fourth day anymore. And every time I open it, I ask myself, why am I even there anymore? Sometimes it's good for professional use because I get, for example, asked to speak at conferences or write articles or stuff like that. I also use Twitter a lot. But I have to say, besides the pros for Twitter that are definitely there, on the other side, I think, at least for Germany, we have a very, very, very small group of people there, mostly politicians, journalists, and activists. So there is a very, very big audience you cannot reach on Twitter. And since I'm working in a field of innovative media products, I need to target that audience. For example, for a podcast, I will probably not find them on Twitter. So not only professionally, but also personally, my favorite platform definitely is Instagram. And I am fearing the day that this app will shut down. Hopefully that will never happen. I use it a lot. I use it, I don't know how many hours daily. I really like about Instagram what Katharina also said. I think it's a very creative platform. You have many dimensions on which you can express what you want to say. May it be just a beach picture or a deeper political message, and you will find people who really want to engage with that. And I think the audience is very, very wide. On the one hand, I can use this network to stay in touch with my friends and my family who live in the States or in Israel and see how their life is going. On the other hand, I can learn how to train for a marathon. I would never do that, but I could. I can learn how to bake challah or cook a shakshuka or anything like that, but I can also educate myself on Black Lives Matter movement, on feminism, on anti-Semitism, and I can find an audience if I, as a journalist, produce, for example, a podcast, as I did about feminism. Then I will find a community of young women who are highly interested in this topic and who are really longing for, well, someone they can engage with and they can interact with and who might give them some guidance or ask the right questions and stuff like that. And this is something I really, really, really love about Instagram.
Okay, thank you very much. Sivan, I'm actually very interested because I know, very similar to me, you're using basically almost everything quite actively. So what is your favorite platform?
So I guess my answer is just a summary of everyone else's answer, which is I think it's so incredible how every single platform has a different audience and a different generation. So like when I want to, put myself out there as a professional, I use LinkedIn. When I want to find out what is happening totally outside of my bubble, I open TikTok, which none of you mentioned, but that's going to be the next big thing. So just prepare yourselves. Instagram is when I want to connect with somebody that I met on LinkedIn in a professional way, but I want to get to know them personally. Facebook is where I find out what is happening in my bubble. Like I actually use Facebook as a form of news. I don't actually read the news. I just sign into Facebook, and everyone in my area is talking about the same thing. I know it's a big deal. So like, I think it's just a matter of picking and choosing like who you want to talk to and what you want to get. And what you guys saying about Twitter and like Germany not really being on Twitter. Israelis are not on Twitter either. So like I don't even understand how to use it, but we have Twitter. Like I think it's just amazing how every single platform is completely different, but you can find whoever you're looking for exists somewhere, and like you just have to speak their language on that platform. So, and it's very cool how all of you use different ones. And like, I never go on Twitter, and you're like, yeah, and I found this, and that, and like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. So
okay, thank you so much. I'm actually surprised that no one mentioned LinkedIn, because I've been trying now since the lockdown. Yes, Sivan is very active on Twitter, on LinkedIn, excuse me. And I've been trying to be very active on LinkedIn since the lockdown. And now let's maybe finish with the most important probably question. How important is social media as the fifth power for our society? How do you see the importance of it for democracy as a society in general? Social media in general. I mean, of course, we said that it's a little bit hard to differentiate between the different platforms, but how you see it is importance for the power for the society, but also maybe also 1-2 sentences about the dangers of social media that we already a little bit mentioned. So Laura, please.
So obviously, so first of all, we really have to connect on LinkedIn. So we do that. And actually, well, obviously, social media is really, really important in our society. I was actually just checking some numbers when it comes to Germany. So there is a study from the public broadcasters which state that 71% of the German population, so like all of them, are online at least once a day. If you look in like younger audiences, so 14 to 29-year-olds, this number is almost 100%. So it obviously, well, there's no question. Social media is the crucial thing actually for making decisions. And I think the question that arises is rather, how can we guarantee that right information, and when I say right, I mean fact-based information, is available to make a decision? So, all of us are following what's going on in the United States right now with a big election ahead. And I think it's not for nothing that Facebook just launched a voting information center, and Twitter is applying warning labels to untrue tweets from Donald Trump. So what I'm trying to say is that social media obviously is very, very important, and we have to be aware of all the dangers we have there right now. So there's disinformation, misinformation, there is hate speech, all those things we have to take into account and try to battle. But social media is the crucial and defining moment.
Okay, thank you. Joelle, where do you see this fifth power of social media for us as a society?
I'm actually part of a generation that should be used to the fact that we're all connected in this world, but even as part of that generation, I'm still amazed by the fact that this is the case. I definitely do believe that social media is one of the biggest achievements in the modern communications. It allows us to share views and opinions and thoughts with people in Pakistan, Canada, Uganda, like name it. I mean, that's amazing. And it also creates a world that barely has borders, and we do see it now. Like a very good examples for that are the demonstrations in Belarus, for example. They're like something that I'm following patiently. We all feel like we're part of it because we see locals are sharing live videos, live streams, all pictures that we don't see in the media. So it's taking over. Like that's stunning. Like I'm still not sure how much we really understand how powerful that tool is. I actually do believe that we do, but not everyone is aware of the fact. So social media makes the world a smaller place, and suddenly everyone is like part of it. Like everyone can mingle in this world. And yeah, I wish also that made us as human beings more sensitive creators. The fact that we feel like being part of everything, but this is utopia. And I'm very curious, like where social media is going in the future, because I already feel like we're in a very interesting stage where we're kind of like teenagers. We already achieved a lot, we saw a lot, we did a lot, but still, like now we see like the whole mountain of work, things that we still have to understand, and we're like somewhere in between. It's going to be very, very interesting the next few years.
Okay, so I guess you're mentioning kind of that we achieved also social equality kind of with social media, because it's available to everyone and everyone can kind of like express their opinion, right?
I wish the fact that I'm able to see that we're all, like, not everyone, like, but we're able to see pictures from Syria, from Yemen, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan. Like we are able to see. I'm not sure if that, like, it should make us more sensitive. It should make us feel more connected to these people. I'm not sure if this is the case. I think it's not. Probably we just get used to see more.
Okay, maybe.
I wish it made us, for sure, more sensitive creatures. I wish.
A very interesting perspective. Ruben, how you see? I mean, obviously, you and I were like in this political activism field. Like we hope that this fifth power can actually change something in our society. How do you see this power?
I want to focus on the dark side of the fifth power, actually, because a few of you know that I'm focused myself very much on far-right extremism, and also on how social media and far-right extremism are working together. And what we talked about, everyone can go on social media. Also, far-right activists, for example, Generation Identity is very actively, or was very actively, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And they were very popular because it was very easy for them to create an alternative reality also. And what I think is the best thing also what happens in the past month is that social media platforms started to ban far-right activists. For example, the head of the Generation Identity, Martin Sellner, and started deplatforming people like far-right people. And this was very hard for them, because they need this audience, because they don't get attention at normal, like in the fourth power, basically, and they can create a space. And also they need the space to collect money, because most of them will never get a normal job again because of their racist, sexist, anti-Semitic views. So we have to be very careful, because they're trying also to be normal, to create a normal account and get involved with other people. And if you are not careful enough, you will be in the right-wing bubble, and maybe you adopt some of the views. So I think this is what the dangers of social media is, that it can be the best thing ever, but it can be also very, very dangerous. And this is also where I see social media platforms taking responsibility to delete what they've done. For example, the generation identity, what I was talking about before. But I think there is much more improvement when it comes to hate speech, Holocaust denying, or several other things.
Okay, so I guess like with any power, there are, you know, like the positive and the negative aspects of the power, neglecting the power, and so on. Totally agree with you, Katharina. How do you see? I mean, you have a little bit maybe different perspective as an author, creator. How do you see this power for our society?
I want to add to what you guys said before me. I think the big difference between the classic media and the social media is that in the classic media, we have editors that are kind of selecting for us. They're selecting topics for us. They are researching them for us, and they figure out what's fake news, what's true, what's worth reporting about, which is definitely a big advantage that the classic media has over the social media, because as Ruben just explained, you can find yourself in a complete parallel world with only right-wing activists, and you think everything they say is true. While as if you would from time to time start the news, you would maybe find out that some of the things that are being told to you there, like, I don't know, all the refugees are raping women all the time in Germany. You would like watch the news and we were like, oh, there's actually not so many rapes. So I think this is a big advantage that the classic media has over the social media. Then on the other hand, and that's, you know, like, it's like a coin, it has two sides. So I think on the other hand, and that's building on what Joelle said, it gives marginalized groups a voice they didn't have. If we look at all the big media in Germany, or in Austria, or in Switzerland, there's hardly any Jews in the media, there's hardly any Muslims, there's hardly any colored people, there's no black people, there's no Asian people. So, you know, it's a selection based on your cultural background, because there's no objectivism in journalism as well. Even if you have very trained journalists that are, you know, very passionate or whatever, they see the world through their eyes, and that's fine. It's just, you know, if you want to dive into a different topic, I think it's so amazing that you have the chance to listen to groups that are so underrepresented still in politics, like wherever you look, you know. So I think this is the big upside of social media, is it makes somehow media more democratic, because people have a voice and they will be heard if they have a nice Instagram story.
Okay, thank you very much for this very interesting aspect. Paula, how do you see, I mean, you're also, one of your topics is feminism. How do you see maybe there, you know, the power of social media for our society, to change our society or to advance our society?
Yeah, I can agree with most of what has been said until now. I think a disadvantage of social media is that everybody can voice their opinion, and not every opinion is a really an opinion that needs to be voiced. There's a lot of stuff, of course, also when we talk about feminism. The last days I was in a comment section on Facebook about and engaging with a few very, very sexist commentators. So it's hard sometimes. It's really, really hard. But during or throughout the years, you learn on how you can see whether someone is really interested in engaging in a topic and learning, or if they are more interested in voicing their opinion that maybe should not have been voiced because it's not reflected, it's not based on true knowledge. So that's something I find very difficult about social media. When we look back, for example, to the Black Lives Matter movement, how many influencers posted the black square on Instagram? but never ever reflected their own racism they carry within themselves and within the stuff they share. And then after that, they felt very, very politically brave and good, but they never provided their followers with deeper and more information about the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe about facts in their own country or something like that. So I think it's sometimes difficult that everybody can just say what they want to or what they think should be heard. Well, and on the other side, as the others already said, you can engage with other people and you can hear voices you would have never heard and meet people you would have never met. And also, I think it's very important for journalists because especially on Twitter, but also on Instagram, I tend to see more and more people who criticize media coverage that is not correct. And I assume that before social media, all those people would probably not have sat down and wrote a letter or an email to a media outlet if they were not okay with the coverage. And now they can do that. And I think it's very important that we as journalists listen to that to a certain extent, but that we listen to it and that we learn from it. So, yeah. For example, we had a radio station in Germany inviting an anti-Semitic so-called comedian. People voiced that they were not okay with that. I think that's very important and that's a high value of social media.
I think I can kind of like sum up your perspective as education. So this is something that is that gives this power to the society that through social media, there is an additional education that you maybe wouldn't get otherwise. Sivan, and when we're talking about education, I mean, you're also educating not journalists, but companies how to communicate their story through social media. Maybe from the economical perspective, how do you see this power, this fifth power, for the society from the company's perspective?
I think that everyone here is talking about the pros and the cons, and so I think from both perspectives, even just from an economic standpoint, if you think about it, Elon Musk tweets something and all of the Tesla stock goes down, and then 3 days later he'll do something crazy and it'll all go back up. So I think that the power is there. It's not a question of how important or how powerful it is, and what's important for us now and this kind of next generation going in with this understanding of this is how it's going to be. It's the same way that when cars were invented, they were dangerous and people had to create seatbelts to prevent those kinds of things. It's our job to come up with seatbelts, which is whether that's figuring out, okay, how are we, figuring out what tweets are okay or not okay for people to see, or whether that's how authentic is it when somebody posts a black square, or as CEOs of companies, what should we be tweeting online, or the president of the United States, what should we be tweeting? There's all sorts of measures we're going to have to take to figure out, the same way newspapers have ethics laws and those kind, and there's committees, who are looking into if somebody incorrectly reports something and, they can get in trouble. So I think it's just a matter of working with the system instead of trying to fight it. This is important. This is how people communicate. This is how we connect. This is the fifth power. And now how are we going to make the fifth power not less powerful, but how are we going to harness that power so that we're not destroying everything all the time? I think is my perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm extremely inspired by this discussion, I have to say. There were some aspects, of course, that I knew, but some aspects that you mentioned that were kind of new to me, and I'm sure also for the audience. So thank you so much for this amazing panel. And because it's a social media, fifth power social media panel, I have to tell the audience, please follow all these 6 amazing speakers on social media. And thank you very much, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
I completely agree, Jenny, and the amazing speakers. This was a very inspiring discussion. I followed you already on Twitter, and I think sometimes I need a little bit of detox because I get addicted to all those social media things. And Jenny is already back. My God, I just wanted to use my space without you to gossip a little bit, because we were telling at the beginning that we both met via Twitter, and a lot of people were curious about exactly which argument we had, but I didn't dig deeper into detail. I said it was she wasn't really happy with some media coverage about Palestinian questions, but at the end we met in person, we discussed. And I said at the beginning, this was also the reason, and yes, this was the beginning of this initiative that we said we have to bring people together. Unfortunately, we could bring them together now in person in Tel Aviv, but we brought you together online, and I appreciated this very much, and I have a lot of things to think about.
Yes. So yes, we hope you enjoyed all of these 3 days. As Susanne mentioned, our friendship is built on argument, and we both believe that this is why we wanted to bring together people who are not all the time have the same opinion, and
still not
do not agree.
Still not
exactly. And we also, all of our speakers, we try to combine people who maybe are not agreeing with each other on every topic, and also this project should be the door out of everybody's social bubble. This is what we believe in, and we hope that with this summit we opened many doors.
Open doors, open minds, and open hearts, and responsibility for all the power you have. I think this is something we all need to have, and respect for all the other human beings. Stay in dialogue, stay in discussion. Then I'm more optimistic for the future. I'm not completely optimistic, but I'm more, because I think we are going through challenging times. Yes. And that's very important that we respect each other and that we continue the discussions.
Yes, and of course, we would love to thank again to our sponsors and supporters of this summit. You'll find all of them, all the supporters and the partners on our website, but the main supporters are the Federal Foreign Office of Germany, the World Jewish Congress, Bertelsmann Stiftung, and Zukunftsfonds of the Republic of Austria. Thank you so much.
And last but not least, from the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you to our fabulous team. You did an amazing job. You made this online conference happen. I'm so proud and thankful, and I think even in Corona times we could show you in front of the camera, but please, you can take off your masks, keep the Corona distance, and show up here, please. First of all, Adrian Klinkern, the technical director. Without you, you wouldn't have seen nothing here. Thanks very much. Here comes Alex Goldgraber. He did the media coordination. He was the guy who dealt with all of you that you have been seen in the picture. Then Mickey Schubitz, please come on. Cameraman and also panelist. Ricardo Levi, the sound guy. He is doing these things. Ido Nissebaum, who did the amazing editing and animation.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Mela Friedrich, our producer. Thank you so much. And we want to thank you at home for joining us. Hope to see you next year in Tel Aviv.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Susanne Glass.
And Jenny Havemann. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.